apparently it just turned into the world's greatest database of penis drawings.
Here we go! Ross is a presenter, content creator, and reporter.
Can content creators make money?
Yeah, of course they can.
So far, he's piped in over 110 countries, played on top of the tallest building in the world, and even
If you think what you think is right, your world is too small.
Yo, if you're traveling full-time, people, or for extended periods of time, Uniqlo quick dry underwear. That'll sort you out.
Wow.
welcome Ross. Welcome Ross.
So I was on this street corner in Shanghai playing, and this old guy comes up and he starts listening, and I thought he is gonna know Old Lang Syne, or in Chinese, 有一滴就天长. And then he gets the tune halfway through and he was like, yes! Like starts singing along. Anyway, so I got a comment the other day being like, wow, you're literally bringing the world together with music.
Vanakkam, welcome and Morians to Purely Personal Podcast. This is not about getting that job. This is not about getting that promotion. This is not about starting your own business. This is about your personal brand. When you have your own brand, you can do all of these. My name is Daniel Paul, and today we have a guy who wants to travel to all the countries in the world and play bagpipes. As of now, he has traveled to 110 countries. Welcome, Ross!
Hello, Danny. Thanks for having me.
Ross, I have a very important question. I've always been curious. Where did you get this name, First Piper? What's the story behind it?
Right. Okay. So I call myself the first piper, which is an affirmation because I want to be the first person to play the bagpipes in every country of the world. Someone that plays the bagpipes is called a piper. And I came up with this journey idea in 2014. So it's been exactly 10 years so far. And as you've mentioned, I've now piped in 110 different countries. I have done some pretty cool stuff. I've played the bagpipes on top of the tallest building in the world and even performed for Bhutanese royalty, which is random.
Ooh.
But I'll take it.
I've also thought about you have traveled to 110 countries in the world, and there must be a moment you would have doubted, can I actually do this? Can I make it to all the countries in the world? Have you had that piece of doubt?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have that doubt every day, even now.
How did you get over that?
Yeah, I'm like mid-30s, man. Started this journey when I was in my early 20s, and you know what? In your 20s, anything's possible. Which, for the listeners out there, start doing stuff in your 20s because I think you have less fear for doing stuff because you have maybe fewer commitments, fewer social pressures. So start young and then maybe work on that journey. But on a day-to-day basis, I kind of think, geez, am I going to finish this journey? However, at the back of my mind, I'm like, look, I'm not in a rush to get this done. Initially, when I first started, I wanted to do all these countries by the time I was 30, which would have been 6 years to do, 196 countries? That would have been nuts. So I've slowed down, and now it's more about enjoying the experiences that I have on my trips and turning them into learning lessons and obviously content too.
And you just said that you played in the tallest building in the world, and you played to Bhutanese royalty.
Yes.
Has there been anyone significant that is like, oh, I'm going to learn bagpipes after this? Has there been any situation like that?
You know what? I have played the bagpipes for different state ministers. They haven't directly told me they're going to learn the bagpipes, but they've said, I like that instrument. For this, one of the princesses in Bhutan, I was performing for her and her son, and I obviously had my kilt on and played the bagpipes, and I played one tune, and afterwards she was like, oh yeah, I know that song. It's the theme tune for Outlander, which is hilarious. And then her son afterwards was like super keen on learning the chanter, the kind of musical instrument that you learn before you get on the bagpipes. So maybe I have converted one member of the Bhutanese royal family. Who knows?
Amazing. What was your first social platform when you started this whole journey, and why?
Okay. Well, my first social platform, full stop, was Bieber. I don't know if you remember Bieber. Was
Yep,
that
yep.
a thing in Finland? I was too young for MySpace. My siblings were on MySpace, so I started on Bieber. Bieber was so cool. That was the place to be. And then it kind of shut down or closed. Do you remember? It got like it wasn't so popular. And then do you remember this campaign that the owner switched it to like user driven content, and you could go onto Bebo and you could like doodle, and
Yep.
in the words of the owner, apparently it just turned into the world's greatest database of penis drawings. People went
Wow.
onto people went onto this communal platform and just drew a dick. And that was it. Anyway,
Didn't know that.
moving on from that, my first platform that I used for my journey, and then like properly used as like and as a business, was Instagram for sure. Facebook was there, but it was not really used as really a platform where you'd be like, I'm going to use this to work and create content for. So it was Instagram in 2014, but I was quite late to the game. Yeah, maybe it wasn't thirsty enough, but I did harness it quite quickly, and I was quite I feel very grateful for it because I was able to use it and pitch to brands that they should be on Instagram, because that was back in the day when brands weren't on Instagram and weren't sure how to engage with social media and how best to use it.
Yeah, and now that TikTok and Snapchat and you keep naming, there's a lot of new platforms coming all the time. How do you keep up with them?
God, I don't. You can't unless you've got a whole team.
Yeah.
It's very hard to keep up with, and I think that's maybe part of the. People would disagree, but I think if you try and keep up as a one-person team and consume and research and share across the board, and really lean into like the values of each platform, that you're just going to burn out. It's just too much. You can't be expected to do that. If you are an established company and you have a whole team to help you do that, fantastic, go for it. But at some point, you've got to, I think, maybe decide what your values are, and then create or align your business and what you create as a business with those values, and see if it matches with those platforms. Because ultimately, to perform well on certain platforms, you've got to do certain types of things and create certain types of content, and that maybe erodes your values slightly, perhaps.
You have traveled to 100 countries and you have a lot of followers. Has there been a moment with your followers that they have done something or you've done together with something that has moved you?
Lots of times, actually. I often get very lovely messages about what I'm doing, and I had one literally yesterday on YouTube, which is my smallest platform. I'm not a very big YouTube creator, but someone commented on me playing the bagpipes. It's a very short clip of me playing Auld Lang Syne, which is a Scottish tune on the bagpipes, for the listeners out there, often played on New Year's Eve in Scotland and around the world. However, Auld Lang Syne is a interestingly international song. It was used in a film in China in like the 60s. And so there's a certain generation of Chinese folk that are very familiar with the tune, but with different lyrics. Apparently, it also used to be used in 7-Elevens in Japan. Random. Anyway, so as a kid, I grew up in China, and I actually know the lyrics to the Auld Lang Syne tune in China, but I also know it on the bagpipes. So I was on this street corner in Shanghai playing, and this old guy comes up and he starts listening, and I thought, he is going to know Auld Lang Syne, or in Chinese, 有一滴就天长, on the bagpipe. So I started playing, and he was like, what's happening? And then he gets the tune halfway through, and he was like, yes, like starts singing along. Anyway, so I got a comment the other day being like, wow, you're literally bringing the world together with music, which is lovely. So that's one side of things. Another side of like positive comments and feedback and messages from people that either follow or have found me online. A couple of years ago, I started this video series about Guatemala. Guatemala is a country I used to live in. For those of you that aren't familiar, it is just south of Mexico, and it is a wonderful country, a land of volcanoes, coffee, and sort of the Mayan heartland. I started this series, and it's called 100 Reasons to Fall in Love with Guatemala. And of course, in my videos, I'm speaking in English, but I'll put English and Spanish subtitles underneath. And I didn't expect this, but one of the loveliest sources of comments and shares and feedbacks and response or engagement was from the Guatemalan diaspora in the United States. And one message in particular that I screenshotted, just honestly, it made me cry, because I was like, that's so flippin' sweet. It was from a mother who had left Guatemala 32 years ago. And obviously her kids have Guatemalan heritage, but they don't really want anything to do with the country, just because of, very sadly, the negative press that Guatemala gets in the United States. So her kids don't speak Spanish and have this very tenuous link to their literal motherland. But she said by showing my videos to her kids, they were able to understand the content because it was in English with Spanish subtitles, speaking or promoting positive news about Guatemala. Because they'd only, prior to that, usually received quite negative news about their country. And honestly, that was so flipping cool. That was so cool to hear. And I was like, damn, okay, that is a nice purpose right there.
Social media is not always positive. There are trolls. There's a lot of negativity going on. There's a lot of hatred. How do you handle it?
I used to not handle it very well. Yeah, it would take maybe it's the same thing for many people. It'd take one horrible comment to ruin 100 or 1,000 comments, and then take it so personally. I think also with my bagpiping stuff, because I of course I play the bagpipes and I love them, but I'm like passionate more than like talented. So I'm not the best piper. So I used to get so nervous about posting videos of myself actually playing tunes because people would critique and be so flippin' mean. But then I've since realized even I've got some good bagpipe buddies who are some of the best pipers in the world. They won't even post videos of themselves because they're nervous about that critique. So like imposter syndrome happens across the board. And I think the more you expose yourself to it, measured maybe, because I think too much, like getting cancelled obviously is not going to result in much self-confidence. Getting exposed to that sort of negative feedback is actually quite a good learning curve, because at the end of the day, you cannot please everybody. And there will be some people out there that just do not like you, really sadly, whether it's because of your accent, your beliefs, your sexuality, or the color of your skin. And that sucks. It's awful. But knowing that and being subject to that is important, because it gives you thick skin.
Yeah, I know that Ross is a motivational speaker, a public speaker, and Ross is someone that has gone through this journey of content creation, both love and hatred. For someone starting new, what is your word of wisdom for them to start in a way they don't lose their self-worth or self-respect or dignity, but they still show themselves up? What are your golden piece of advice for them?
Danny, I feel like you know what I'm going to say here, because it's my go-to tagline, and it's something that I have thought about a lot over the past 10 years of traveling. And it's the idea of being open to having your opinion changed. The reason I say that is because you don't have to change your opinion if someone shares a new opinion with you. However, if you're open to the idea that your opinion could be changed, I guarantee you're going to learn something from that situation. And with that, of course, there's like many prerequisites there. Like dialogue is so important, communication is so important, but be open to having your opinion changed.
You traveling 110 countries, you carry
Yeah.
your own belief, carry your own lifestyle. What
Yeah.
is that challenge that you face often, or that something is uncomfortable for you?
Okay, so I suppose I'm an openly gay man, and I'm married. So traveling around the world kind of sucks, actually. I'm obviously very privileged. I'm a white man, and that comes with its own privileges. But at the back of my mind, I suppose there's this deep rooted fear in many of the places that I go to, which I can't not shake, because in some cases it's actually terrifying. Yeah, especially if I'm traveling with my partner. So that is something I always think about. But then I also reflect on the fact that I'm also so lucky to have a passport that allows me certain privileges, protection, and to be able to move through spaces where I present as someone that is straight or straight passing. So that is something I always think about. But I also feel like it's my duty, because of that, and to use my privilege to maybe use my platform to support and share in the community that I'm part of.
Yeah. Have you ever thought, like, because you're traveling constantly, there might be some incidents like, what the hell, man? I'm gay, so what? Have you ever thought, like, okay, this has gone too far. Maybe I'm going to slow down or quit this?
Yes, but no. I've had some really lovely interactions. Not that I seek it out, or my partner seek it out, but we often find in almost every country we go to that people working in tourism, or people working in the industries that we're working, are queer or part of the LGBTQ community. And if we feel safe to do so, we open up, we allow ourselves to be open to that individual to demonstrate that like it is okay, because in many countries it's not, and it's not safe to be open. So being present, taking space in certain areas is so important. There's a term for it, backdoor diplomacy, and I think tourism is so valuable in that regard for doing that. I know there's so much more to be discussed there, but yes, it's definitely an interesting dynamic. Aside from that, though, have there been instances where I'm thinking this is too much, I need to stop? In other regards, yes. Like in business partners we've had in the past. I remember in 2017, we were just getting going with content creation, setting up a little company, which was, okay, I'm not going to say ahead of its time, but there weren't many other companies out there dedicated just to content creation. And we had this travel company. I won't say the name, but it was kind of like trip.com or booking.com, and they were trying to establish themselves, and they were wanting creators to create videos for them regularly, and they were paying pretty well per month. And we did it for a couple of months, but then we found out who the investors were and where the money was coming from, and it sucked to have to do that, but we were just like, our values are definitely above the money that we're making from them, and it wasn't a nice feeling knowing where that money was coming from and who the investors were. So we sent them an email and just said, sorry, no thanks, doesn't align with what we do, which sucked.
But I'm so proud of you. You did the right decision. It's not about money eventually, it's about your values, and you stuck to your values. The next part that I want to also make sure that everyone understands is Ross did not always have a brand. Now, Ross has a brand. So, how important it is for someone to be known?
There's like known, and then there's like known. Like you're known on social media, and you can put a number to it. Basically, the more followers you have, the more known supposedly you are. Does that mean you're a better person or making more impact? No. We're all influencers to a certain degree. How important it is to be known, I think, is more important maybe to have a strong personal brand and known for certain values. And I've got good friends who mention that. Like, if people can describe you as someone who is strong of X, has great skills in this, is very impactful in that, like, that's a really cool way to be described by your friends in your community or maybe business partners. And on top of that, like, people who are mentioning your names in rooms that you are not in, I'm taking that from a friend, Nicole Bannister.
Ah,
I'm going to credit her on that, 100%. Those are people who you want to surround yourself with, and I think your community helps with your brand as well, because who you associate yourself with is partly who you become. And
yep.
like with that though, that you suppose you've got to have a starting point. And for the younger listeners out there, I think like interacting with people, having dialogue, a bit open dialogue with folk. If you have the luxury to be able to travel, not just abroad, but to different towns and cities or around where you are, to have different interactions, establish those sort of values, what your moral compass is like, and then you'll kind of work out who you want to hang around with, what kind of brand you want to be. I know that's a bit airy fairy. In a nutshell, I wear a skirt and play a really loud instrument. So is that my brand? Maybe.
Yeah, I love the fact what you said. Your brand is what people speak about you when you're not there. That's beautiful. I think that's indirectly your brand. It can be a good one, it can be a negative one, but what people speak about you when you're not there totally reflects your brand. Now, there are so many youngsters that wants to get that promotion, that wants to get that raise, that want to start their own business. Where do they start? What are your tips for them?
Oof. Yeah. Okay. I wouldn't listen to me, first of all, because I've only ever had one job in my life. I've done loads of internships. Okay, maybe that's my bit of advice. There we go. I had very my parents are quite conservative. Maybe Danny, you can speak experience of this too. Parents of a certain generation, of a certain background, have different values and can be conservative or not. Mine was not super conservative, but pushing me in the route of like knowing what I wanted to do. Very proud that I knew I wanted to be an architect. Nah, I didn't. I just said those things because I like the response that I got from people. I did tons of work experience. That's my advice. When you're at school, when you're 16, when you're 17, 18, tons of work experience. Shadow people in different industries. And if you find that job interesting, cool, then maybe like look into that industry. I like shadowed an engineer when I was 16 because I thought I wanted to be an engineer. Hated it. Rubbish. I went and worked for Louis Vuitton for one summer, and really cool, like cool brand to work with. But then the more I learned, the more I was like, these people are. This is not a good industry. It didn't align with my brands, my values. I'll just put it that way. So by doing that, by exposing yourself to work experience, you're working for free at the end of the day, which is a bit frustrating. But that gives you great exposure to what you want to do and what you don't want to do. So do as much of it as you can, because then it becomes an exercise in closing doors slightly, and that makes your focus a bit easier. Because if you know where you don't want to go, then you know which path you do want to go.
So your first advice is get a lot of experience and grow your personal brand. So I heard from one of my friend, which he said, like, don't be the best kept secret. You might be the best marketer in the world, but if no one knows you won't get that promotion. So what Ross did, got all the experience and he started building his brand. So that is Ross's advice for youngsters.
Thank you for simplifying all that waffle.
And Ross, I know you do a lot of projects with regards to traveling and whatnot. What is Ross's next big thing? What is he working on? Without sharing your future plans, what is Ross working on now?
Yo, I'll share because I want that investor. That money. I'm going to be that meme with a megaphone. Give me a sugar daddy in a marina. This year, my big plan is to focus more on YouTube. I've been a bit lazy on creating videos and making excuses, but I don't necessarily feel like I need to be the face of what I do. I think what I'm saying is more important than what I am in the content that I'm making. So I have an idea for a series, which is like origin stories, basically, where things come from. And I think it's something I find very interesting, where stuff comes from. And the more relatable it is, the better. We often forget and take for granted where things come from in our lives, like bananas, apples. How do they get to our tables? Spices and whatnot. So I'm working on that as a bit of a series. And yeah, if there's anyone out there that wants to pay me to do that, great. I'm there.
Let's talk money. Let's talk money.
If you're a 16-year-old with a trust fund, yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready to create content. But that's one of the most important things, Ross. Like, can content creators make money?
Yeah, of course they can. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I've been always told, like, by this, your parents, my parents, people of those generations, YouTube is not a profession. Content creation is not a profession.
Yeah.
How important is content these days to grow your brand, to grow your business, to be known?
I think there's two sides to it. So if you want to be a content creator for the sake of being a content creator, then like maybe you need to have a rethink about what impact you're trying to make. If you want to make money for the sake of it, you can through content creation. Of course you can. Lean into the trends and whatnot. But like, is that actually making an impact on the world? Are you bringing like humankind forward by doing that? Yes, you will make money out of it for sure. But if you want to make money, there might be easier ways to make money out there. Like go and work in finance, maybe. Go and be an ethical hacker. They've got great salaries, starting salaries. Work in crypto, perhaps. You don't need to be a content creator to make money. If you're going to create content, like have a moral compass, have a value set that you're going to adhere to, and try and keep to that. Yes, of course, you've got to play to the game. And by the game, I mean the algorithm, to try and get your content out there a little bit, because ultimately you're a bit of a slave to the algorithm. And that's what gets your content in front of people's eyes. And the more engagement, the more brand opportunities, blah, blah, blah. But how important is it for a content creator to be known? I think it's better to be an expert in a field, or and then use that as your launch pad for content creation. Nowadays, the content that seems to do well this month and this year and maybe end of last year, content that seems to do very well is either point of view, amateur by design stuff with really low production value, you speaking into a camera. Um, that's great. However, the bad side of that is that people who aren't experts can pretend to be experts. But if you are an expert and if you're good at being in front of the camera, marry those two things up, because you could be the mediator in that industry, which simplifies it. Whether you're a politician or a scientist that like wants to give the real side of what it's like to work in a laboratory, finding new vaccines. People are so interested in that stuff. We want to know how a vaccine is created because it's literally behind closed doors. So become an expert in something and then do that. Now, I'm over here being like, I'm not an expert at bagpipes. What the hell am I doing? Guilty. Guilty. Am I an expert in anything? Probably not. Jack of all trades, master of none.
Regardless of whichever career people are from, and this is Frost's personal opinion, what are the three skills that you think, regardless of whatever career they are from, one needs to learn? It can be speaking, public speaking, whatever, those three skills that will move you up the ladder in a corporate job or in your business.
Number one, honestly, public speaking. I say this from personal experience because that's the only job I've ever had, working for a motivational speaking company. Best experience I've ever had was doing training with them and then working in schools across the UK and then around the world. Being confident in front of a group of people, a crowd of people, and being able to tell stories, engaging, knowing your presence in a crowd is so valuable. And being a storyteller, not like a storyteller on social media, like an actual great storyteller, is so valuable because you then become great at speaking to people. Maybe not so good at listening, but you become great at interviewing and promoting yourself. So that's one aspect. Number two, listening. I've already mentioned it. Train yourself how to listen. That's something I've had to learn. I obviously love being on stage and love the limelight. But in my 20s, I probably wasn't the best listener. And that would have served me well, to learn how to listen and learn how to be quiet. There's a lot to learn from other people around you. And then the third one, be open to having your opinion. No.
Well, I have a confession to make on that. I have a confession. I have used that way more than you have. To
Tell
my
me.
boss, to my friends.
Damn right.
Yeah, I've told that my mentor, the person that I look
Trademark.
up to, have always told me this: be open enough to having your opinions changed. It is a golden sentence that I will not forget, because that's what changes you from the rest of them. I walk into a meeting with my boss. I walk into a meeting with my, potential partners, saying that I'm open enough to listen first. So thank you for that, because that has opened my mind to actually like, oh yeah, that is cool. And even my friends know that they use it in their own, network. Like, hey, you know what? I want to say something. Be open enough to having your opinions changed. So it's become very famous. You're the Nelson Mandela of our network.
I mean, I probably stole that from somebody. So I can't fact check it. It basically boils down to not being too stubborn, really. Like, we all have set ideas, but nothing's set in concrete. It's also, isn't it? Don't you think the most disarming thing in a discussion or an argument? And I was thinking about this as a kid. When you're a teenager and you're arguing with your friends or your family or whatever, the most disarming thing for the person that you're arguing with or discussing with is to be like, actually, you know what? You're right.
Whew,
What can they do?
what do I
They're
do
like,
now?
cool, okay, I've convinced
Okay.
you. Done.
True, true. Yes. And one more thing that I want to also share with Ross is like, uh, you are traveling to a lot of countries, and you have lived in different countries. One thing that I also heard from someone, I don't know who it is: if you think what you think is right, your world is too small.
Oh, ooh. I was going to say,
Yeah,
Was it me again, Danny? No.
No, I'm not sure. It could be. It could be. But
Go back.
yeah, but that's a beautiful thing. Think about it, right? Like I come from a culture thinking this is the right way to raise a kid. I come from a culture this is the right way to keep the house. But then you have this a wife from, let's say, Africa, and a husband from, let's say, England, and they meet, and then like, okay, our world is too small, and
Mm.
this is amazing. And I think I just want to throw it out to the world. If you think what you think is always right, your world is too small.
Hmm. Hmm.
All right.
Words.
With this, we are coming to the end of this podcast, Ross. I'm super glad that you are a guest in this podcast. And thank you for being the first guest of this podcast.
Thanks for having me, Danny.
And to all our guests and all the listeners, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to our podcast. You can find Ross's social handles and website in the description below. Please follow us on Spotify, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Remember, if you want to get that job, if you want to get that promotion, if you want to start that business, make your personal brand known. This is me, Daniel Paul. Thank you.